Hi, I'm Marianne Simpson, Aviation PR Specialist and Director of Jetway Communications. I've been asked by cabin technology provider AirFi to host this roundtable discussion today, aimed at answering some of your burning questions around low bandwidth in-flight connectivity. Questions like, can less be more when it comes to IFC? What's the business case for lower bandwidth IFC solutions? Can we really avoid major airframe modifications in our efforts to get connected? And probably most of all, does it really work? Here with me today are Job Heimerikx, CEO of AirFi, Jan van der Heul, Vice President of Sales at Skytrac, and John Peterson, Executive Director of Aviation at Iridium. Working together, AirFi, Iridium, and Skytrac have developed AirFi's LEO connectivity solution, which they say is fully functional and ready to shake up the aviation sector right now. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, okay. Let's do some introductions so everybody can find out a little bit more about you guys and what qualifies you to be at the table here for this discussion today. And I think we'll start with Jan.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you for hosting this. Pleased to be here. So my name is Jan van der Heul. I work with Skytrac. Skytrac is a global provider of aviation connectivity solutions. Been with the company for about 6 years, but been in the aviation industry for about 15. Prior to that, I was working with the helicopter operator around the world. Yeah, very excited to be here. We've been working with AirFi and Iridium for the past couple of years to bring this to the point where we're at today, and quite excited.
All right. John, how about you?
Hey, Marianne. John Peterson with Iridium. I've been in aviation for about 30 years. I've been blessed to work in all aspects of it, from mechanical structures to avionics to the communication systems that we're using today. And I have also had the opportunity to bring the new VHF solutions to market, the Swift broadband solutions for Inmarsat, and now the Iridium Certus solutions to market, and the KA and KU services as well. So I'm really excited to see how the Iridium Certus solution is going to fit into aviation for our specific needs.
Awesome. So we're all pretty qualified so far. How about you, Job?
Well, I'm the junior here in the business as founder of AirFi. My name is Job Heimerikx. I only am in this industry for 11 years, so I'm really the admin of this group. And AirFi has always been looking for new innovations that are, let's say, minimal invasive to improve the airline cabin operations in order for the airlines to make more revenue or less costs, while at the same time improve the passenger experience. And within the entire industry right now, and the importance of getting the aircraft and the cabin more and more connected, we asked my friends to join this endeavor to have this LEO solution live in the industry.
Okay, Job, as an overview, can you just explain what is LEO and how does it work?
Well, the best person actually to explain what LEO is all about would be John, in terms of satellite constellation and that kind of stuff. But from an AirFi perspective, we have worked very hard to perfectionize the use of an Iridium antenna inside the window pane of an aircraft, and have this antenna connected to our hardware and for the Mall in the Sky platform. And our AirFi box creates a Wi-Fi signal inside the aircraft. Passengers can connect to this AirFi box over Wi-Fi and then interact with each other, interact with the ground, shop and be entertained. And this LEO antenna allows us to validate payments and have passengers use their own WhatsApp and our vendors on our platform to actually send orders to the ground and do all kinds of validations.
Okay, so that is a lot. There's a lot of functionality in this. And then you did mention that you wanted to refer to John to explain, I guess, the very high level of what's going on at the satellite, the network level to enable all of this functionality.
I have a very short 1 hour explanation of LEO, so this shouldn't take too long. In all seriousness, LEO means low Earth orbit. And that's about 500 miles above the Earth. MEO's middle Earth orbit, and then there's GEO, which is geostationary Earth orbit. In geostationary Earth orbit, the satellite actually is so far away from the Earth, 17,000 miles, that it goes around the Earth at about the same rate as the rotation of the Earth. So when you take a look at a satellite, a low Earth orbit satellite's going like 18,000 miles per hour around the Earth. It goes around the Earth every 10 hours. When you take a look at geostationary, it's going 0 miles per hour around the Earth because it's going around the Earth at the same rate we rotate. And sound is just like anything else. The further away it is, the longer it takes to get there. So we do it in terms of milliseconds. So your mobile phone and voice, when you make a voice call, that operates in 10 to 50 milliseconds. So you can talk, the person can talk back, you don't talk over top of each other. Right around 100 milliseconds is where it's like, oh, I'm sorry, did I speak over you? And so that's where the latency gets. Low Earth orbit is about 180 to 200 milliseconds. And then geostationary is about 1,000 milliseconds. So it's pretty far out there, and it adds quite a bit to the latency. So the quality of the voice service and the speed at which the packets go back and forth.
We're here talking about the LEO solution. I think we should differentiate between LEO, as in low Earth orbit generally, a position that satellites can be in space, and LEO, the solution that AirFi offers to the aviation industry. So Job, you started explaining what your LEO does, and obviously you're working together with Jan and John to make that happen. But AirFi started talking about LEO back in like 2020, and there was marketing campaigns, you introduced it, and then it went a little bit quiet, and now you're really talking about LEO again. What happened there, and why now are you coming back to the market to make sure that everybody knows about your LEO product? Where do you think the AirFi LEO solution is really going to fit within the overall in-flight connectivity landscape?
Yeah, well, it's a fair question, and the difference between then and now is that in the past we used also the Iridium network. However, we used a technology that is called data burst, where we would send small packages of data over the Iridium network to the ground and back. But now, with the arrival of Certus and the availability of that for the aviation industry, we're now able to create a IP network, so really an IP connection, and that allows us to really be connected. While in the past, when we launched the first generation of LEO, this was all about sending small packages of data to the ground, and you have to do all kinds of things to make sure that those packages of data are being sent in the right order, received in the right order, and for that you required apps and all kinds of other methodologies to make it work. The COVID period really helped us to get all the innovation power into this product and get it onto a complete new level. So that's the difference between then and now, and it's a difference of black and white.
Okay, perfect. And then John, from Iridium's perspective, what's so exciting about the LEO solution? And from your perspective, how much better is it working now than I guess back in 2020?
So from an availability perspective, it's the same. You're always available. We're the only constellation that is completely global, up over the poles, everywhere in the world. We're also the only constellation where no matter where a packet of data starts, it bounces across the satellites before it comes down. So we can land the data all the data can always end up in Phoenix unless you put a teleport in a place like Russia. So it's a huge advantage because aircraft are everywhere all the time, and our network allows you, including over the poles, to get that data back. The big advantage that Certus brings over what we had before is more data can flow through the pipe. So rather than being very strict and only getting a little small message through, say, a credit card transaction, now what can be done is you can get a credit card transaction and a text message and an email through. The part I want to really emphasize here is for the airlines, not every airline can afford $500,000 AKU systems. Their mission doesn't require it or demand it. So the great part with Iridium is our product is much smaller, much lighter, and much less expensive. So for those airlines that want to provide the services like Job is offering, those airlines now can finally put a very affordable satellite communication system on that works no matter where their airplane flies in the world. And so it's a niche of the marketplace we're very excited to fill.
Jan, you guys are the hardware partner creating the antennas that sort of connect John's part of this business to Job's part of this business in the aircraft cabin. Is this some proprietary hardware that you've created from the ground up? If so, what were the elements or the important things that I had to do, and how did you create the antenna that makes this all possible?
Yeah, so it is our hardware that we're providing as part of the solution. So Skytrac has been a long-term Iridium partner for many, many years, providing solutions to the aviation industry, providing the hardware, the airtime, the services, the end service. And so the solution consists of a satellite terminal and an antenna that is connected to the AirFi box that is already on many aircraft that AirFi serves. We've done significant testing over the past little while here to make sure everything works as designed. I think Job will get into the details of having dual antennas at a minimum to provide optimal connectivity to the satellites, making sure we see as many satellites as we can as we fly the aircraft. For us, it's a significant path into the airline industry, especially into the passenger connectivity space, which previously Skytrac was not the predominant focus for. But bringing the Iridium advantage and our capabilities in combination with AirFi is sort of the perfect intersection, I think, is where this product and service has been able to come into existence.
I imagine you've got similar antenna technology in working in similar industries. Is this your first airborne antenna, or what other, mobility segments are you guys active in?
So we serve all segments of aviation, fixed wing, rotary wing, unmanned, and soon enough, the urban air mobility market as well. So we've been providing that for over 35 years in terms of satellite communication systems, all the way from early days to tracking aircraft globally in remote locations, to communicating with those aircraft, to understanding how the aircraft are being flown, transmitting flight data in flight. And now with the advent of Certus, increasing the bandwidth to enable additional capabilities like in-flight connectivity for crew, flight attendants or passengers. So the options providing this data pipe with a solution at the start and at the end, putting it all together, is the options are limitless into what we can do for aviation. And like I said, all segments of aviation.
That's really exciting. Thank you so much. Right, I know we really want to get into use cases and business case and why this solution is so amazing and why it makes so much sense for airlines, why it's such an easy decision. I think a lot of people are really desperate to know exactly what the capabilities of the system are. Nobody's expecting it to match the throughput and the speed of Ka, Ku band options on the market, for example. But how does the service really stack up if we're looking at performance?
If I may jump into this question, from a functionality point of view, we claim as AirFi that we can deal with over 90% of all functionalities or functions that you can think of in a business case at less than 10% of the cost. The size of the pipe of the connectivity is not relevant for the majority of those functions that you want to execute. And the entire market has been flooded by Ka and Ku band marketing campaigns, and everybody is in this red race to just find the biggest connection to an aircraft. But in essence, these elements are simply not needed in order to really to make a business case. And the bigger the technology, the higher the investment. And at the end of the day, the majority of all those investments do not result into a positive business case. And you can ask at any trade show or at any roundtable discussion or panel discussion, you can ask any of the other KU, KA band vendors that they all acknowledge that they don't get the business case into a positive one. And the rise of these options have been very much fueled by the full service carriers. And these full service carriers, they try to mimic the situation at home into the aircraft and have this like luxury feeling. But at the end of the day, that's a minority of the entire industry, while the majority is there to fight to make a good living and to increase the revenue per seat. And in order to increase the revenue per seat, you need to make sure that you are keeping your costs low, and you have to make sure that you always make your business case.
What are the capabilities of the system? And, you know, if you prefer to look at dollar value and value for the airline, then maybe the question should be, how much less expensive is the system? Can you give us any more hard numbers in either of those regards?
From a usage point of view, everybody in the aircraft is able to send text messages over their WhatsApp to the ground and have them received back. And that's functionality number one from a passenger connectivity performance. We can do payments in the same way and form, and we can receive all kinds of information, while at the same time the flight deck is updating their EFBs to get the latest flight plans. And at the same time, if there is really something going on and somebody needs a doctor, the line can even be paused and have a full voice connectivity to the ground to have a doctor on standby over the phone in case the crew wants this. And everything else that has to do with data can go over this very thin, relatively compared to KU-KA band, very thin connection that is only 22 to 88 kilobit per second. But nobody can type that away within a WhatsApp message. And that's the point. You do not need a gigabyte connection unless you want to provide your passengers the availability to stream video. But that kind of stuff we can do on the aircraft with the AirFi box, or you want to have your passengers provide the ability to send emails or browse websites. Now, the last thing, majority of our clients just don't want that, because you lose the connection with your customer. And then if you have a KU band and you are flying above a certain height above Greenland, you will lose the connection anyway. And then you have not only a lousy service, but you have a huge amount of unhappy passengers at the same time. And these kind of things are not going to happen with this solution.
We talked a little bit about use case, and I kind of feel like maybe we should stay on that for a little longer before we move on to cost, which we're also talking about. We talked about the operational benefit. You went into medical calls and things like that can be done over the network. You talked about guest experience, that everybody on the plane can send text messages, which is what passengers really want to do. I mean, that is sort of the basic thing that, like, I'd be happy if I could text every time I got on the plane. I don't need to do a video call while I'm on the plane, but to be able to send a text to my friend would be great. And then in-flight retail enablement is a big one as well. And I'm sure that Job wants to talk about that and how it can, basically having a pipe to the ground can help airlines save money from fraudulent transactions or transactions that just don't work, and then enable airlines to sell product that are not on board or require inventory checks.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if you can have this system provided free of charge to a passenger while still making money? That's the core element of this concept, because we use this connection to check credit cards, which means on an airline that sells food and beverages or retail on board can check every credit card, and that prevents them from a bounced credit card rate that sometimes varies between 2 to 8% of all transactions. That's hundreds of dollars or euros per flight lag that the system will generate as additional revenue to the airline. And if you then think about all the turnaround times and the communications of the crew, connecting flights, flight deck being able to update their electronic flight book with different waypoints or new weather forecasts, and then have all these elements combined together, that is a huge cost saving factor for the airline and the revenue for the airline at the same time. If we then look at the mall in the sky option, which is an option to our clients, where we provide also the opportunity to, book a cab, have products sent or services sent at home, book theater tickets, these kind of things, or hotel upgrades, these elements can all be communicated to the ground and fed back to the aircraft to see if there's still availability. So the vendors inside the mall in the sky also have the opportunity to sell products to the passenger at the same time. And all these things together is a very strong contribution to a positive use case that allows you to give opportunity to communicate as a passenger to the ground completely for free.
Getting back into money, I know when an airline is getting connected or putting connectivity on board, there's a couple different areas where they're going to be spending money. One is the initial capital expenditure on the hardware, just acquiring the system and everything like that. Then you sort of have your capacity costs. And then of course there's maintenance. These things, they need to be tuned up or they break down and things like that. So how does the cost of LEO in these regards, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I was wondering if each of you would like to elaborate, looking at your individual role in the overall solution over, what are the costs or how is it set up with the airline and how does that compare again to a larger or a higher broadband connectivity solution?
Yeah, so we have aligned with the AirFi business model to make this a low hurdle for adoption. And so a zero CapEx structure we developed together with Job to speed up the adoption and to eliminate hurdles of adopting it on the aircraft. That goes along with the airtime and the AirFi services that are being provided to the customers. So we were able to do that because of our scale at Skytrac, as we have an existing customer base, existing volume of data going through our system, which has allowed us to come up with this structure that hopefully will be beneficial for the customers.
Yeah, and to add on that, pretty much the only thing that the airline needs to arrange is to have an MRO do the installation of the power cradle, the receiver, and the antenna, which accounts for somewhere around 75 to 90 man hours. If you look at it from an LCC point of view, it takes us around 3 overnight stays of an aircraft to do the entire work. So there's no such thing as aircraft on ground or extensive testing or installations. These kind of installations actually happen. It's almost like changing a wheel on a driving car, and it's possible.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's not bad. John, did you have anything you wanted to add about the capacity and how airlines pay for that or how that works?
I think Job and Jan covered it really well. The only thing that I would add is we always need to remember that speed drives more consumption drives higher monthly costs. Job articulated well at the beginning, they've got to make their seat mile costs work. And so offering a minimum service in order to keep the passengers entertained and connected, while also making sure that you get your transactions through. You can make money by giving the passenger something for free. That's a win-win.
All right, how do you guys know for sure that this thing works? What, you don't?
I know it works. It works perfect. I was just using it yesterday on the flight, so it works great.
For you.
The Certus product works amazing, and the ability to be connected and have everything else. And Job is really going to market on maritime. We have 6,500 systems running every day. And so this network and this equipment and what is going on is very thoroughly tested by other segments of the market. It takes a little longer to get into aviation because all that safety takes time. And so it takes time to get it safety approved. But Job went through that expense, and Jan over there went through that expense and went through that effort. And we've got safety certified product going on the aircraft. We're real excited about that.
Yeah, from a Skytrac perspective, we are an AS9100 certified company, which means we're building avionics for aircraft manufacturers and operators that is allowed to go on aircraft. And so quality standards have been there for many, many years, and we're applying those same standards to the products that are supporting the AirFi LEO solution. And so the reliability history of that we bring with us. This same system has been operating in other segments of aviation for probably over a year and a half now successfully. And so we're bringing this in a new application in partnership with AirFi to the airline market, but we know the system works. We've been using Iridium for over, I think, 10, 15 years, very reliably. Our customers originally and for a long time of our existence have relied on our hardware and service for critical communications for applications such as search and rescue, emergency medical services, firefighting, where you can't miss a beat when it comes to communication, tracking aircraft and planning your missions. And so that criticality comes with the high serviceability, high uptime, and not to forget the global coverage, because our customers operate everywhere on the planet, from the North Pole to the South Pole and everywhere in between. And they require the same level of connectivity no matter where they fly, which, for airline connectivity, if you experience that on the major air carriers flying across the Atlantic above a certain latitude, you lose connectivity. And you pay for your connectivity, but you can't use it. And good luck trying to get your money back. It's not worth the effort to go through 6 weeks of that. So this just works. It actually works even better on the pulse than it works around the equator, but it works everywhere. It's a significant advantage, and just bringing it into the passenger connectivity framework just made a lot of sense here, and I'm glad it's happening finally.
Great. Job, did you want to add anything to that one?
Well, the new element that we bring to the table is the fact that we have an antenna on either side of the window. So there are a couple of things that we have added even further. Like if you have an antenna on top of your fuselage, you have a 360 degrees view for satellites. And with those two antennas on either sides, we have a 330 degree angle of view of satellites. Now, the beauty of the system is that the system is actually redundant because we have double receivers, so we can do load balancing if we see multiple satellites. And because of the use of those two antennas, we will always see a satellite on either side of the aircraft. We know this because we have done numerous flights over the last period with esteemed customers and partners that were allowing us to fly along and have these systems installed and tested. And we're sitting on a massive amount of data that proves that all the claims that were just given from a reliability standpoint.
Awesome. Okay, so testing in progress, and everyone's very confident. I love that. This partnership, you guys are not the only people who are marketing similar non-invasive, lightweight, low cost, low bandwidth, low Earth orbit type of solutions to the market. There are a couple, and everybody seems to be, I think, racing to be the first to really break through and announce customers and things like that. So what makes the LEO solution different from its nearest competitors on the market in terms of technology?
There are some players in the market, and people are identifying this way of working further and further. There are players that are still on the data burst solution that require apps to communicate, which is as we said, that we left that behind us before the COVID and during the COVID, because it's a less usable form of communication for passenger communication. And any other vendor requires to put a hole in the fuselage. You can put an Iridium satellite receiver and an antenna on an aircraft. There's enough products and hardware for this, but it always requires to put a hole in the fuselage. And that's the unique aspect of the window solution, is that it is truly minimal invasive. You can put it in, but in the same less effort, you can even take it out again. And that means that everybody that rents or leases an aircraft is looking at a much better solution than those other vendors that are in the market. At the same time, having those other vendors in the market is great because it proves on what we're working on, and they all contribute of creating this LEO vibe within the market. So I'm very happy that they are there, because it's an acknowledgement of what we're doing.
I get excited about what Job is doing when we take a look at the segment of the market that are low-cost carriers and they're leasing their aircraft. This is the absolute perfect solution, because they can put this into the aircraft. They don't have to make any major modifications to the aircraft. They don't even have to drill an antenna into the fuselage. So they satisfy a lot of things. One, the cost that we touched on. Two, the ability to recover revenue. And three, the ability to return the aircraft back to the leasing company at the end of the lease without having to go through major demodifications of the aircraft, which are needed. So this is something that these low-cost carriers can pick up. And a lot of the growth in the air transport industry is actually coming from low-cost carriers leasing aircraft and putting them into service on routes. So the big growth in the industry are the little airlines that have 3, 4, 5, 10 aircraft, and there's hundreds of them, as opposed to the dozen big airlines that are swapping out 100 aircraft. So this is the place where I really think Job's business is going to see a lot of growth moving forward, particularly when they get used to making money, and we're just the right solution to drop in there.
Okay, perfect. Any final thoughts from anybody on the roundtable? I think we're getting near to the end of the discussion, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to leave some parting words.
Yeah, just to add to John's comments there, you know, from my perspective, there's so many aircraft out there that are currently not connected, whether it's low-cost carriers, major carriers, you know, they all have older fleets that are not connected yet. So the potential for this is, you know, hundreds and thousands of aircraft that you can very easily connect in a very short period of time. So very, very excited to see where this is going.
Yeah, we created test kits that are completely portable. Together with 3 of us, we have our partnership really built into a small photo casing bag. And that means we're having 3 kits on every continent right now doing test flights. And if there are any people that are interested in, you know, trying this partnership out, it's really bringing it on board, activating, flying, and testing. So the proof of product here is incredibly simple. It's just about taking a flight and trying it out. It's that simple. There's nothing needed for it.
Okay, perfect. And on that note, Job, if anybody watching wants to get a hold of you guys and talk more about the LEO solution, how can they do that?
Best way is to go to the AirFi website or send us an email. And we are pretty much present on every aviation trade show in the world. So that's the best way to go forward.
Perfect. Okay, thank you all so much for your time today. I hope that everybody watching found it as enlightening as I did.
Thanks, Marianne. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.